Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Today I am working on my 2003 Ram 2500. Here it is. You can see it is up on jack stands and I have been working on it for some time. I am redoing the brakes and the suspension. As you can see, I have a mound of tools and numerous parts off the truck, including brake rotors. I have both the front and the rear rotors sitting right here. The front rotors still have the hubs in them because I'm replacing the hubs with this job as well. So I just got those off as one piece because they were basically rust welded together. And then we also have a old upper control arm sitting right here. The ball joint is quite loose and the boot was cracked. So replacing the upper control arms, the lower control arms, the sway bar end links, the shocks, struts, and as I said, the hub and new rotors and pads. For now, I have the passenger side kind of torn apart. I'll show you that here in just a moment, but this is the driver's side, which I left completely intact except for the hub that would go right here. This is for a two-wheel drive model, so this won't really pertain to the 4x4 guys. They'll have a little bit more going on. So anyways, I took off the hub and the rotor right here. I have the brake caliper just hanging here for now. I'm eventually going to clip this and put it on a bucket, just set it over here. I'm repainting my calipers as well during this job. But anyways, what I have here is the Moog Problem Solver upper control arms. One of the previous owners replaced these at some point, so I've never done any suspension work on this truck at all. So the tie rod ends are also Problem Solver, and then as I said, I'm replacing the upper control arm, the sway bar end links, the shocks and struts, the inner and outer tie rods, and the brand new hubs and rotors and brake pads. So also the bushings for the sway bar, and then in another video I'm going to be replacing the bushings on the steering rack. So those bushings over there, and there. So quite a bit of work going on here. I am in the middle of doing the suspension work on the passenger side here. As you can see, I have it pretty well torn apart in here. Also, you can notice that I have the wheel well plastics removed. So you need that in order to get leverage to get a lot of these bolts undone, and just to overall just give you more room in here. This morning, I put in the lower control arm, and let me tell you, these bolts, and to get this thing aligned perfectly and get this in, you really have to work at it with a dead blow hammer. So anyways, this is my progress so far. Why don't I show you step by step whenever I finish this side and we start on the other side. So here we go. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and get started in taking apart the front suspension on this two-wheel drive truck. Let's start out by taking off the sway bar end link. This is the end link right here, and it is held on to the sway bar right here. But first, let's go ahead and take off the nut that is underneath the lower control arm. It is right in this hole right here, and it is a 18 millimeter. While loosening the nut, the 18 millimeter nut underneath here, you also need a 18 millimeter wrench that will fit underneath there to hold the stabilizer bar in link in place while you're loosening that one nut. Alright, after we have that bottom nut off, now we need to concentrate on disconnecting the sway bar from the sway bar end link. On the top here, I have a 17 millimeter, which is going to undo the nut, and while I undo the nut, I have to hold the stabilizer end link here with this is a 15 millimeter. So I'm going to go ahead and take those off. After I take those off, I'm just going to go ahead and completely take off the sway bar on my truck, because I am going to be replacing these old worn out sway bar bushings right there. So those, if you're wondering, these bolts under here are a 15 millimeter. So I'm going to go ahead and undo all those and take off the sway bar. Look how tore up that boot is on the stabilizer end link. That is just crud, and the boot has disintegrated And then these bushings up here, these aren't too good either. They're kind of flattened and everything. Not too bad, but definitely could need replacing. Oh man, that is going straight in the garbage. Alright, now that we have the sway bar removed, now we can go ahead and take off the outer tie rod. Down here we have a cotter pin and a 21mm castle nut. Next, you need to separate the tie rod end from the spindle here. So you're going to need to take a big hammer or I'm replacing these tie rod ends, so I really don't care about the boots. So I'm going to give it a few whacks with this 3-pound hammer. If that doesn't work, then I will get out my pickle forks. But just so you know, pickle forks usually destroy these boots. But you know, in my case, I don't care because I have a whole new part going on. So do whichever way you feel is best in your situation. Alright guys, a few good whacks with my pickle fork. This is the set that I have. All different sizes and everything. I got that tie rod end loose, but I forgot we also need to undo the nut, because since I am replacing my tie rods, we are going to need to count the rotations of which it takes to take this thing off. So I'll show you how to do that in just a moment, but first I need to get this off. The nut that is on my tie rod end is a 24mm, so with it in the knuckle here, or the spindle, I am going to loosen this nut so then I can see how many rotations it takes to take this off, so I can get it as close to, you know, the alignment of what it is at right now whenever I put the new parts on. You want to know the number of rotations. The passenger side was 23 rotations, so let me go ahead and break this loose and then we'll see how many rotations this one is. Okay, I broke that loose. It's very easy. As long as you are going the correct direction, it is very easy. So I have that loose. So now I am going to take the tie rod end out. And now, like I said, we are going to rotate this. So let's see. All right, so the inner tie rod, I'm gonna have to hold the inner tie rod as I rotate this off. So there's 1, 2, 3. All right, now that we have the tie rod end disconnected, now I'm going to take off the boot. That one is just a quick clip. I already have that one off. These metal clamps here, I'm just going to kind of cut off with my cutter pliers here, and I'll probably just reuse it with, or I'll probably just use a zip tie whenever I put this back together. But yeah, I need to get this boot off so we can remove the inner tie rods. Alright guys, success! I have the boot off, and here is the inner tie rod. You can see it is very easy to move, very loose, probably has lots of play in there. I'm not sure if these are original or not. I know the outer tie rods were Moog, but anyways, I'm going to be replacing inner tie rods as well. So next I need to get a wrench right on that. I may need a tie rod wrench, which I will probably go rent from the auto parts store, but first I'm going to try my crescent wrench first and see if I can get it off with this. If not, well, we'll know in a second. I tried getting a wrench on right here, but that was not successful, so I got the easier solution, which is this right here, a master inner tie rod set. So I just rented this tool, so there it is. So these right here go over the nut. They go over the nut like that. I have to find the appropriate size. As you can see, there are many different sizes. Alright guys, so that first tool to remove this inner tie rod did not work, so I am going to resort to this tool. I will set this up on the inner tie rod and let's hope this gets it off. Success. That tool worked. Excellent. All right, here's what I have to replace it. I believe that's, was that Mevotech Supreme right there. Here is the old one on this side, the new one on this side. Looking good. That may be some thread locker already on there. I'm not sure. Comes with a new washer and a clip for the boot and another metal clip for the boot. So that's real nice. Don't have to use a zip tie. So there you go. Now I'm just gonna kind of clean the steering rack right here up. It has some old grease on it, so I'm gonna put some new grease on it just to make it all fresh before I put this new one on. All right guys, new tie rod is screwed on. I also have this washer on. The tabs are facing the steering rack. So now we just turn this on. I'm gonna get my wrench on here, tighten it down good and tight. Then we can get our boot back on and then our outer tie rod. That'll be good. Here it is guys. The clamps are back on. The bellow is on. Now we just need the outer tie rod. First I'm gonna